Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you for an album review that I'm reviewing for you guys this afternoon, this late afternoon, I guess you could say, for Royal Blood's Back to the Water Below album. This is just for the regular edition I'm reviewing. I will review the deluxe edition at a later time when I get around to it. But I'm going to what I listen to for all 10 of these songs and let you know my overall thoughts on the album as a whole. That I listen to, and sorry about that cat getting in the way. It's just my sister's cat's being annoying some of the time. So let's dive right into this album review. This was a 31-minute album, like 31 and a half minutes. Wasn't very long for the regular edition, but got done with it pretty quick. So, this first song is Mountains at Midnight, which was the first single to, I believe, announce this album's release date. It was actually a really good song, in my opinion. I actually enjoyed the experimentation. The overall melody to the song is really good, and just how it sounds, it performed pretty well. Mike Keir's vocals sounded really good. Like the drum work, just they were trying something different with the drum work and putting more drums and guitar into this track, and it sounded really good. So 5 out of 5. Shiner in the Dark is a pretty funky track. It's actually really good. Um, I actually did enjoy the experimentation they went with this track, with the drum work and guitar work, and Mike Keir's vocals sounding really good and on point in this track. It sounded good mixing wise. So I think the mixing for the first half of this album is the best part of the album. Um, I will talk about the second half at a later in the review mostly. Shiner in the Dark is getting a 5 out of 5. Really like that. And I forgot to mention that Mountains at Midnight actually impressed me. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like the song at first when I listened to it, because I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 when I reviewed it on a track review. But I actually changed my opinion on it because I've listened to it more and gotten really used to the track with how it sounded. So that's why I gave it a 5 out of 5. Now to talk about Pull Me Through. That's the second single they dropped. They only dropped 2 singles for this album. I'm pretty impressed with Royal Blood on that because they wanted fans to wait and be excited to hear what they're gonna listen to once album release date comes. And today's album release date, it dropped a week early only because they got done with the album sooner than we thought, and they just wanted to excite fans and say, okay, we're dropping it a week early. So it was supposed to come out September 8th, but it decided to come out September 1st, which I thought was pretty cool and pretty nice of them. So Pull Me Through is a really good track. I like the drum work in this track. The overall melody and Mike Keir's vocals are sounding really good. Uh, Both the melody and Mike Keir's vocals are really interesting me in the track. And the music video is pretty cool too, with how the guy's drowning in water or whatever, like feels like a bottomless pit, and he's like trying to swim his way out of it, but it's a pretty interesting song, and the lyrics say it all mostly. So 5 out of 5. The Firing Line is a great song. I really like this track overall. Mike Keir's vocals are pretty good. The drum work in it's pretty interesting, and the drummer tries something new with his drumming in this track. Mostly in Shiner in the Dark was the more experimental side of his drum work, and it sounded really good. So 5 out of 5 for Firing Line. Tell Me When It's Too Late is a pretty good track, and it's probably the last pretty good song on this album. Then we're going to get into the second half of what I think of the second half of the album. Um, Tell Me When It's Too Late is a pretty good song. I really enjoyed this track with how it sounded overall, and it executed pretty well. So I'd give it a 5 out of 5. I think it's a pretty strong track for what it went for. I mean, there are some moments where it goes by too fast, but I think it does pretty well with Mike Keir's vocals, drumming, guitar wise, and the melody are sounding pretty on point with this track. So yeah, 5 out of 5. Triggers is a decent song. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it at first, but I just couldn't stand the noise it was making with the melody, and the mixing was pretty off with this track. Mostly the mixing was my biggest critique about this track, and I just think it's a decent song. It's not anything mind blowing. So I think Mike Here's vocals do sound good, but I think they need to tune the melody out a little lower, like lower the volume on the mixing in this and the noise making in the track. It just has too much uh, noise over overproducing with this track, and it's like speaking over the noise is like sounding over Mike Keir's vocals in this track, and that is my biggest gripe. So 4 out of 5. How Many More Times is a pretty solid track. Don't hate this, just think it's a solid one. So 4.5 out of 5. I think Mike Keir's vocals are sounding alright, and just the melody is, it sounds like a regular Royal Blood song from the last album, Typhoons, but that's just how I view it, I guess, in my opinion. So 4.5 out of 5. High Waters is a pretty much a solid track too. Don't hate this track, just I don't know, I'm in the middle with this one. I think it's a good track, but it has its problems at times. It's kind of my least favorite, so 4.5 out of 5. There Goes My Cool is another solid track. It's the second to last song for the album, but I think it's alright for what it went for. The melody is alright. Mike Keir's vocals is hit or miss with this track, but it does okay. So 4.5 out of 5. Waves is a solid one. It's the closing track for the regular edition for this album, but I think it's a solid track to end the album. Not the worst closing track, just good in its own way. Mike Keir's vocals is sounding alright. The chorus is probably the best part of the song. The verses have its hit or misses with this track, and yeah, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. Overall, production, mixing, and execution wise, I think Royal Blood Back to the Water Below album was a good album in its own way. I wouldn't say I liked this album too much, but it's listenable. The first half is the best part of the album. The second half, I have my opinions and my critiques with it. So, if I were to give this album an overall score, I think mixing wise for the first half is very good. Then it starts to dwindle down and kind of go at a decline with the second half of the mixing and all that being a little off key. So I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10 for Royal Blood Back to the Water Below. Good album in its own way. Don't hate it, just have my opinions about it at the end of the day. So it's a good album. It's re-listenable for sure. And I will review the deluxe edition at a later time when I am able to find the songs to download it or at least listen to it on YouTube or whatever. So 8 out of 10 for Royal Blood Back to the Water Below. It's not as good as Typhoons, but I still think it's a good album. It's a good one in their discography. So thank you guys for watching this album review.